The massive chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a neutron star that pulsed with ancient light. Inside, representatives from 847 different species sat in their designated seats, waiting for the final vote. The air felt heavy with tension, thick enough to choke on. Ambassador Marcus Wright stood at the center platform with his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Colonel Retta Vasquez kept her military posture perfect, her face showing nothing. They had come here with hope, believing that 50 years of peaceful contact would mean something. They had been wrong. Supreme Arbiter Vellern rose from his elevated throne. The Krillian leader was 12 feet tall with gray-scaled skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber like rolling thunder. The Galactic Council will now vote on the application of species designation human. Representing the planet called Earth, all in favor of accepting their membership, signal now. Wright held his breath. The chamber remained silent. Not a single light appeared on the voting board. His heart sank. All opposed to accepting Earth into the Galactic Council, signal now. The board lit up like a constellation. Red lights everywhere, covering almost the entire display. 846 votes against them. Only one species abstained, the peaceful Luminari, their representative sitting quietly with glowing eyes that seemed sad. High Chancellor Morven of the Draven Collective stood next. He was tall and thin with purple skin and a face that looked almost human except for the absence of a nose. His voice dripped with contempt. The humans ask us to welcome them as equals. But look at their history. War after war on their own planet. They divided themselves by skin color, by invisible borders, by which god they prayed to. They created weapons capable of destroying their entire world, then built thousands of them. They nearly exterminated themselves twice in the span of 100 years. And now they want to bring that violence to the stars? Morven gestured dramatically. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will not let a species of barbarians destroy what we have built. I vote no, and I pray that the rest of this council sees the wisdom in keeping Earth isolated. The chamber erupted in agreement. Species from across the galaxy voiced their support. Wright wanted to scream at them, to tell them they were wrong, that humanity had changed. But he knew it would do no good. Vellern raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The vote is concluded. Earth's application for membership is denied. He paused, his eyes fixed on Wright. Furthermore, this council cannot allow such a dangerous species to expand unchecked. We impose the following sanctions effective immediately. Wright felt Retta tense beside him. All human colonies in the Outer Rim systems designated as Alpha 7, Beta 3, and Gamma 9 must be evacuated within 1 solar cycle. All human vessels are hereby banned from using established hyperspace lanes. Any trade agreements between Earth and Council species are terminated. These sanctions will remain in effect indefinitely or until humanity proves it can coexist peacefully with civilized species. The words hit Wright like physical blows. Those 3 colonies held over 200,000 people. Families who had spent decades building new lives. And the hyperspace ban would cripple Earth's exploration and economy. Retta stepped forward, her voice cutting through the murmurs. You're making a mistake. We came here in peace, offering friendship and cooperation. This punishment is unjust. Vellern's eyes narrowed. The council has spoken. You will comply or face military enforcement. Wright placed a hand on Rita's shoulder, stopping her from saying more. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who had once seemed friendly during diplomatic dinners and cultural exchanges. Now they looked at him like he was something dangerous that needed to be caged. He took a deep breath and spoke clearly. Very well. We will return to Earth and deliver your decision. But know this, Supreme Arbiter. You've made a grave miscalculation today. We came in peace, but we won't leave in shame. Remember that. The chamber fell silent. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. Vellern's expression remained unchanged. This session is concluded. The human delegation will depart immediately. Wright and Rita turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the massive space. Behind them, the council representatives began talking amongst themselves, already moving on to other business. Humanity's rejection was just another item on their agenda. On the shuttle back to their ship, Rita finally spoke. They planned this from the beginning. They were never going to accept us. Wright nodded slowly. President Torres suspected as much. That's why she approved Project Sentinel. Rita looked at him sharply. You think we'll need it? I think we just made 846 enemies. Yes, we'll need it. 2 weeks later, Wright and Rita stood in the Unified Earth Government Chamber in Geneva. President Elena Torres listened to their report with a face like stone. Around the room, representatives from every nation sat in grim silence. When Wright finished, Torres stood. She was a former military commander herself, and her voice carried the weight of authority. So they want us to abandon our people, to crawl back into our own system and stay there like good little children. She looked around the room. What say you all? Do we comply? The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted their defiance. Not a single voice called for submission. Torres let them vent for a moment, then raised her hand. Then we are agreed. Send word to the colonies. No one is being evacuated. Begin fortifying our positions. And activate all Sentinel protocols. She turned to a screen on the wall, activating a global broadcast. Within seconds, her face appeared on billions of screens across Earth and all its colonies. My fellow humans. Today, the Galactic Council rejected us. They demanded we abandon our colonies and retreat. They believe we are too violent, too dangerous to join their civilized society. She paused. They are right about one thing. We are dangerous, but only to those who threaten us and our own. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not submit to unjust sanctions. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will survive this too. The broadcast ended. Within hours, Earth's hidden shipyards activated, military reserves mobilized. Orbital defense platforms came online, weapon systems that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure for years. In a bunker beneath the Himalayas, Admiral Jackson Kane received his orders. He was 55 years old with gray hair and scars from the resource wars. He had trained for this moment without knowing if it would ever come. Sir? Deep space monitoring stations are reporting unusual readings, his communications officer said. Kane pulled up the data. Multiple council fleet signatures converging on human colony worlds. Battle groups from the Krillian Empire, the Draven Collective, and others. How many ships? Preliminary count suggests over 60 warships, sir. They're heading for New Terra. Kane felt cold fury settle in his chest. New Terra was home to 40,000 colonists, including his sister and her family. Activate the defense fleet. All available ships to rally points. We launch in 6 hours. Sir, we only have 30 ships ready. They outnumber us 2 to 1. Kane smiled without humor. Then we'll just have to be twice as good. They wanted to see how dangerous humans could be. Now they'll learn. He looked at the star map showing council fleets approaching human space like wolves circling prey. But humanity had teeth too, and they were about to bite back. Governor Michael Bradford stood on the observation deck of New Terra's Capitol building and watched the Krillian warships take position around his planet. 20 massive vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their gray hulls reflected the light from New Terra's sun, and their weapons were already powered up. The communication came through on all frequencies, impossible to ignore. Fleetmaster Gorath's voice was deep and filled with authority. Attention human colonists of New Terra. By order of the Galactic Council, you have violated the terms of your species' sanctions. You have 24 hours to evacuate this planet. Any ships remaining after that time will be destroyed. Any colonists who resist will be considered hostile combatants. You have been warned. Bradford turned to his security chief, a woman named Rebecca Stone, who had served in Earth's Marines before retiring to the colonies. What are our options? Rebecca pulled up tactical displays. We have the hidden orbital platforms that were installed 3 years ago under the Civilian Infrastructure Program. 42 weapons platforms disguised as communications satellites and power stations. We also have 30,000 able-bodied adults who completed basic combat training, and about 10,000 mining charges that could be repurposed. Against 20 Krillian battleships? Against 20 Krillian battleships, she confirmed. It's not good odds, Governor. Bradford thought about the families below. Children playing in parks. Farmers tending crops in the valleys. Teachers, doctors, engineers. People who had left Earth to build something new and better. He thought about his own daughter, who was 7 years old and loved the purple flowers that grew wild on New Terra's hillsides. Send a message to all colonists. We're not leaving. Anyone who wants to evacuate can take civilian transports to the edge of the system, but New Terra is our home. We're going to defend it. The message went out. Bradford expected maybe half the population to choose evacuation. Instead, over 35,000 people volunteered to fight. They came with mining equipment, construction vehicles, and hunting rifles. They came ready to defend their home. The Krillians didn't expect resistance. When their deadline passed and the humans remained, Fleet Master Gorath seemed genuinely surprised. This is your final warning. Evacuate now or face destruction. Rebecca activated the hidden weapons platforms. 42 satellites suddenly revealed themselves as missile batteries and railguns. They opened fire simultaneously, targeting the nearest Krillian ships the Krillians' shields held, but the surprise attack damaged 2 vessels and destroyed several fighter craft. Gorath's shock turned to rage. All ships open fire? Teach these primitives what happens when they defy the Council. The battle for New Terra began. Krillian plasma bolts rained down on the planet's surface. Shields over the major cities held, but outlying settlements took heavy damage. Human weapons platforms returned fire, using tactics that confused the Krillians. Instead of sustained barrages, they fired in rapid bursts from unexpected angles, then went dark before return fire could target them. In orbit, Rebecca commanded the defense from a hidden bunker. She watched 3 mining ships accelerate toward the Krillian fleet at full burn. The Krillians ignored them, thinking they were evacuation vessels. They realized their mistake too late. The mining ships, loaded with explosives and piloted by volunteers, crashed into a Krillian battleship's engine section. The explosion tore the massive vessel in half. 300 human miners died in that moment, but they took 800 Krillian warriors with them. Gorath ordered his ships to pull back, to bombard the planet from a safer distance. But New Terra's colonists had spent years mining the asteroid belt around their world. They knew every rock, every trajectory. Rebecca activated the second phase. Thousands of small asteroids, hollowed out and filled with explosives, suddenly changed course. Remote controls guided them toward the Krillian fleet. The alien sensors couldn't distinguish between natural asteroids and weaponized ones until it was too late. Explosions blossomed across the Krillian formation. Shields failed. Hulls cracked. 2 more battleships went dark, their power systems crippled. On the surface, Bradford organized guerrilla teams. When Krillian dropships landed to secure key facilities, they found themselves in running battles with humans who knew every street, every building. The Krillians were superior warriors in open combat, but in close quarters urban fighting, the advantage disappeared. 1 Krillian squad tried to capture the main hospital. They were met by doctors and nurses armed with homemade explosives and hunting rifles. The Krillians won that battle, but at a cost of 20 warriors to capture a single building, and the humans melted away, only to strike again somewhere else. Fleet Master Gorath couldn't understand it. In 3,000 years of Council history, no species had ever fought with such ferocity. The humans were outgunned, outmatched, but they refused to surrender. They used civilian ships as weapons. They turned their own infrastructure into traps. They fought with an intensity that seemed insane. These creatures are mad, Gorath said to his second-in-command. They're willing to die for a single planet. Perhaps that's why the Council feared them, sir. 3 weeks into the siege, when Gorath had lost 6 ships and thousands of warriors, the situation changed. New signatures appeared on the edge of the system. Human military vessels. Arriving earlier than expected, Admiral Jackson Kane's fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a tight formation. 32 warships, smaller than the Krillian vessels but built with newer technology. Kane's flagship, the UES Defiant, led the charge. All ships, Battle Formation Delta, target their command ship first. These bastards have been shooting at civilians for 3 weeks. Time to even the odds. The human fleet attacked with precision that shocked the Krillians. Their weapons were different, using solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds instead of energy weapons. The railgun rounds punched through Krillian shields that had been designed to disperse plasma and laser fire. Kane's tactical approach was unlike anything in Council military doctrine. He used the debris field from destroyed ships as cover. He positioned his vessels so Krillian ships would risk hitting each other if they fired. He exploited every moment of hesitation. The UES Defiant targeted Gorath's flagship directly. Kane knew the Krillians valued honor in direct combat. He broadcast on open channels. Fleet Master Gorath. I'm Admiral Jackson Kane. You've been terrorizing my people for 3 weeks. Let's see how you handle a fair fight. Gorath, proud and angry, took the bait. His flagship broke formation to engage the Defiant directly. The two vessels traded fire, shields flaring with each impact. But Kane had one advantage the Krillian didn't expect. Human AI-assisted targeting systems had been developed in secret. Against Council regulations that banned advanced AI, the Defiant's weapons tracked and predicted Gorath's movements, landing hits with impossible accuracy. Meanwhile, Rebecca coordinated with the fleet from the surface. The remaining weapons platforms hit the Krillian ships from below, while Kane attacked from above. Caught in a crossfire, the alien fleet began to break apart. Gorath's flagship took critical damage. His engines failed. His weapons went offline. Kane could have destroyed him, but instead sent a message. Retreat now, Fleet Master. Take your surviving ships and go. Tell the Council what happened here. Gorath, humiliated but alive, accepted. 8 Krillian battleships limped away from New Terra, leaving 6 destroyed vessels and thousands of dead warriors behind. It was the first military defeat the Council had suffered in 200 years. On the surface, colonists cheered. Bradford held his daughter tight, both of them crying with relief. In orbit, Kane looked at the damaged planet below and the wreckage floating in space. They had won, but the cost had been high. 1,500 colonists dead. 2 of his own ships destroyed. And this was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, news spread through official and unofficial channels. Humanity had fought back. The weak species that the Council had dismissed had bloodied one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy on the Luminari homeworld. Ambassador Trell watched the reports with interest. The Luminari had abstained from the vote against humanity for a reason. They believed in justice, and what the Council had done to Earth was unjust. Trell composed a secret message and sent it through encrypted channels to Earth. You have allies whether you know it or not. The Council is not as united as they pretend. More will come for you, but you have proven you can fight. Perhaps together we can build something better than what exists now. But in the Council chambers, Velen called an emergency session. His fury was absolute. Humanity has committed an act of war. They have destroyed Council vessels and killed thousands. This cannot stand. I propose we assemble a true armada, 300 ships from across our alliance. We will go to Earth itself and end this threat permanently. The vote was called. This time, the Council was unanimous. War was coming, and Earth stood alone against the combined might of 800 worlds. Dr. Nathan Cross worked 80-hour days in the underground facility beneath the Australian outback. Around him, the best scientists from Earth and the colonies collaborated on weapons that would have been considered impossible just months before. The Council's threat had given humanity something it had always excelled at, motivation born from desperation. The quantum disruption mines are ready, Nathan announced to the military observers. They won't destroy shields, but they'll destabilize them. Make them flicker. And in those microseconds of vulnerability, conventional weapons can get through. Admiral Kane reviewed the data with approval. How many can we deploy? We've manufactured 12,000 in the past month. We can seed them throughout the solar system, invisible until activated. Kane nodded. Do it, we need every advantage. Across Earth, the mobilization was total. Every orbital shipyard worked at maximum capacity, building new vessels from designs that had existed only in theoretical files. Civilian factories converted to military production. The unemployment rate dropped to zero. As everyone found work supporting the war effort, recruitment centers couldn't handle the flood of volunteers. Young and old, people wanted to defend their homeworld. Veterans from Earth's various conflicts came out of retirement, their experience suddenly valuable again. Training programs that normally took months were compressed into weeks. President Torres addressed the world almost daily, her messages broadcast to every screen on Earth and beyond. She never lied about the danger they faced. 300 Council warships were coming. Earth's fleet numbered only 150 vessels, most of them newly constructed and untested in real combat. We are outgunned, Torres said during one broadcast. We are outnumbered. But we are not outmatched. Because we're fighting for our home, for our families, for our right to exist. And throughout history, that has made all the difference. The Council Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system 4 weeks after the Council's declaration. 300 warships representing dozens of species. War Marshal Theron of the Draven Collective commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed anything humanity had built. Theron broadcast his message toward Earth, his purple face filled with contempt. Humans of Earth, your defiance ends today. Surrender now and accept Council occupation. Your weapons will be confiscated. Your government will be dissolved. Your people will be re-educated. Resist, and we will reduce your planet to ash. You have 1 hour to respond. In Geneva, President Torres sat with her cabinet. Around the table were faces she had worked with for years. Good people who had never wanted war but were ready to fight one. Opinions? She asked. Marcus Wright, back from his failed diplomatic mission, spoke first. They're expecting us to fold. The entire Council military doctrine is based on overwhelming force leading to quick surrender. They've never faced an enemy willing to accept massive casualties. Rita Vasquez added, our intelligence suggests their fleet composition is diverse. Multiple species with different technologies and command structures. That's a weakness we can exploit. Torres made her decision. Send the response. The message went out on all frequencies. Not just to the Council fleet, but broadcast across the entire galaxy. Torres wanted everyone to hear this. War Marshal Theron. Humanity has fought tyrants on our own world for millennia. We overthrew kings and emperors. We defeated dictators who tried to exterminate entire peoples. We will not bow to tyrants from the stars. If you want Earth, come and take it. But know that every meter will cost you blood. Theron's face darkened with rage. So be it, all ships advance. Engage and destroy all human forces. The Council Armada moved into the solar system in a massive formation. They advanced past Pluto, past Neptune, confident in their superiority. Admiral Kane watched from the command center on the Defiant, now positioned in the asteroid belt. Let them come deeper, Kane said calmly. We want them surrounded by our territory before we spring the trap. The Council fleet reached the orbit of Jupiter. That's when Nathan's quantum mines activated. Thousands of invisible devices scattered throughout space suddenly disrupted the quantum fields that powered the alien shields. For just a fraction of a second, those shields flickered. Human ships hidden among Jupiter's moons opened fire. Railgun rounds, already in flight and timed perfectly, passed through the shield disruptions and slammed into unprotected hulls. 12 Council ships exploded before they even knew they were under attack. The battle spread across multiple fronts. Near Mars, a Krillian battle group ran into orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as weather satellites. In the asteroid belt, human vessels used the terrain like fighters in a forest, appearing from behind rocks, to fire, and then disappearing again. War Marshal Theron tried to maintain formation. But the Council fleet's diversity became a liability. Different species had different response times. Draven ships favored long-range bombardment. Krillian ships wanted to close for direct combat. Other species had their own doctrines. The coordination fell apart. Kane exploited every gap. His ships worked in small, independent groups with coordinated objectives. They targeted command ships first, knowing that each species' vessels relied heavily on flagship direction. When those command ships died, entire formations became confused. The battle raged for 16 hours. Space filled with debris and expanding clouds of gas from ruptured ships. Humans took terrible losses. 30 vessels destroyed, thousands of crew dead. But they gave worse than they got. 70 council ships went dark, their hulls breached, their crews lost to vacuum. Then something unexpected happened. Ships with markings from the Luminari civilization appeared between the two fleets. Not many, just 12 vessels, but their presence was shocking. Ambassador Trell's voice came through on all frequencies. This conflict is based on falsehood. The Galactic Council leadership fabricated evidence against humanity. They lied to justify aggression against a peaceful species. I present proof. Data flooded the networks. Communications between Velern and the Draven leadership, discussing how to eliminate humanity before it became a rival. Intelligence reports that had been altered to make humans seem more aggressive. Testimony from council species who had questioned the narrative and been silenced on several council ships. Crews stopped fighting. Representatives from a dozen species started demanding answers from their command structures. How much of what they'd been told was true? Were they really fighting to protect the galaxy, or were they tools of a corrupt leadership? 12 species withdrew their ships from the Armada. Captains refused orders, declaring they wouldn't fight for a lie. Chaos spread through what remained of the Council fleet. War Marshal Theron watched his armada fracturing and screamed orders. Any ship that retreats will be destroyed as a traitor. All remaining vessels focus fire on the human positions. Kill them all. But the damage was done. His fleet was down to 200 ships and morale was shattered. The humans, meanwhile, fought with renewed determination. They had allies now, proof that they weren't the monsters the Council claimed. Kane saw his opportunity. All ships concentrate fire on the Draven flagship. We cut off the head of this snake. 50 human vessels turned their weapons on Theron's dreadnought. The massive ship's shields held against the first volleys, but quantum mines nearby disrupted them at critical moments. Rounds penetrated deep into the hull. Secondary explosions rippled along the vessel's spine. Theron abandoned ship seconds before his flagship exploded. His escape pod was recovered by a Draven support vessel, and what remained of his fleet retreated toward the edge of the solar system. The Battle of Sol was over. Earth had held, the cost was staggering. 60,000 humans dead. Both military and civilian casualties from strikes that had reached Mars and even the Moon, 45 warships destroyed. Damage to infrastructure that would take years to repair, but the Council had lost over 120 ships. More importantly, they had lost credibility. The evidence of their leadership's conspiracy spread across the galaxy faster than they could contain it. Dozens of species demanded investigations. Some withdrew from the Council entirely. In the aftermath, Ambassador Marcus Wright received encrypted messages from 43 different species. Some offered apologies. Some offered trade. Some offered alliance. The galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer a small, isolated species to be dismissed. They were a power that had fought the Council Armada and won. And more than that, they had exposed corruption at the heart of galactic governance. President Torres surveyed the damage to Earth's orbital structures and made a decision. We're not just defending ourselves anymore. We're going to build something better. Reach out to every species that contacted us. It's time to create an alternative to the Council. Something based on actual cooperation, not domination. Admiral Kane looked at the casualty list and the damaged ships. The Council won't accept this. They'll come for us again. Torres nodded grimly. Then we'll be ready. But next time, we won't be alone. In the wreckage floating around Earth, human and alien bodies drifted together in death. The war had claimed thousands, but it had also planted seeds of something new. A galaxy that had been stable for 3,000 years was about to change forever, and humanity would be at the center of that change, 3 months after the Battle of Seoul. The Palais des Nations in Geneva hosted the first summit of what would become the Freedom Coalition. Representatives from 34 species filled the historic building. Species that had broken away from the Council or had never joined in the first place. Ambassador Marcus Wright stood at the podium, older and grayer than before the war, but his voice remained strong. We gather not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. The Galactic Council claimed to represent order and civilization. Instead, they represented tyranny dressed in diplomatic language. We propose something different. A coalition where each species has equal voice, equal vote, where might does not make right. The Luminari delegation, led by a new ambassador named Kirel after Trell's death, stood in support. The Luminari endorsed this vision. For too long we remained silent while the Council grew corrupt. Never again. Species after species pledged their support. Small civilizations that had been ignored by the Council. Mid-tier powers tired of being dictated to by the Draven and Krillian empires. Even some former Council loyalists who had been horrified by the revelations of conspiracy, the Freedom Coalition was born, but not everyone accepted the new order. Supreme Arbiter Vellern had been forced to resign in disgrace, but the Council itself still existed. And, in the Draven home system, High Chancellor Morven refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. In a broadcast that shocked the galaxy, Morven declared himself emperor. The Galactic Council was weak, corrupted by the very humans it should have eliminated. I will not make that mistake. The Draven Empire will restore order to the galaxy, with or without the Council's blessing. Within weeks, Morvan consolidated power. He absorbed the fleets of smaller Council species that depended on Draven protection. He formed alliances with the most militant Krillian factions, those who saw the Council's defeat as a humiliation that demanded revenge. 3 other aggressive species joined his banner, the Draven Empire, controlled 150 warships and the resources of 17 star systems. They were smaller than the old Council, but unified and hungry for war on Earth. President Torres recognized the threat immediately. The first war was about survival. This one will be about ideology. Freedom versus tyranny. And we need to be ready. Humanity's shipyards had never stopped building. The lessons from the Battle of Seoul had been absorbed and applied. New designs emerged, faster and more lethal. But building ships took time, and the Draven Empire wasn't waiting. Captain Lisa Renko was working late in the intelligence center when the first reports came through. Explosions at the shipyards orbiting Earth, not all of them, but 3 major facilities had suffered catastrophic malfunctions within hours of each other. This wasn't an accident. She told Rita Vasquez, who had been promoted to head of military intelligence. The timing is too precise. Someone sabotaged those yards from the inside. Rita pulled up security footage. Start investigating everyone who had access. Cross-reference with anyone who expressed doubts about the war or sympathy for the Council. The investigation went deeper. 2 weeks later, another attack. The UES Prometheus, humanity's newest and most advanced warship, exploded during its trial run. 2,000 crew members died instantly. The loss was devastating, not just in lives but in morale. Lisa found the pattern. Someone with high-level access had been feeding information to Draven agents. Someone who knew ship designs, security protocols, and operational schedules. The list of suspects narrowed to senior military officials. The traitor was revealed during a council of war. General Thomas Blake, a decorated officer who had fought in the resource wars on Earth decades ago. When Rita confronted him with the evidence, Blake didn't deny it. "You're leading humanity to extinction," Blake said, his voice tired. "I've seen war, real war. We can't win against the entire galaxy. I was trying to save our species the only way possible, surrender before we're wiped out completely." Marcus Wright, present for the confrontation, shook his head. "By betraying your own people? By murdering thousands of innocent crew members? I did what I thought was necessary, Blake said without emotion. History would have judged me kindly if I'd succeeded. Blake escaped during his transfer to a secure facility. A Draven stealth ship picked him up from a remote location. Rita watched the recording of his extraction with cold fury. He's going to give them everything he knows about our defenses, our strategies, our new weapons projects. Admiral Kane, who had considered Blake a friend once, looked devastated. Then we adjust, change our plans. And when we face the Draven, we make them pay for every bit of intelligence Blake gave them. The Draven Empire launched its offensive 2 weeks later. Coordinated attacks on 6 coalition worlds simultaneously. The Freedom Coalition, still organizing its combined military structure, was caught unprepared. 2 systems fell within days. The populations were given a choice: submit to Draven rule or face extermination. Most submitted, but thousands chose to flee instead, creating a refugee crisis that strained coalition resources. The third target was the Luminari homeworld, a planet of philosophers and artists who had never known war until they stood beside humanity. Emperor Morven wanted to make an example of them. To show what happened to those who betrayed the old order, the Luminari had minimal military capability. Their dozen warships were research vessels retrofitted with weapons. They lasted 4 hours against the Draven assault fleet. Admiral Kane arrived with reinforcements, pushing his ships beyond their safe limits to reach the Luminari system faster. But he was still 12 hours too late. The planet's surface was burning. Draven ships had targeted population centers with kinetic bombardment, dropping asteroids from orbit. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years were craters. The death toll was in the millions. Kane's ships engaged the Draven fleet in rage-fueled combat. They managed to destroy 8 Draven vessels before the enemy retreated, but the damage was done. The Luminari civilization, one of the oldest and most peaceful in the galaxy, had been nearly exterminated. Ambassador Kirel died helping evacuate the last transport ships. Kane found the recording of Kirel's final words, transmitted as Draven fire destroyed the transport bay. Tell humanity thank you for standing with us. We chose the right side, even if the cost was everything. Build the galaxy we dreamed of. Don't let our sacrifice be meaningless. Kane stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the burning planet, and felt something harden inside him. This wasn't just war anymore. This was genocide. And it had to be stopped, no matter the cost. Back on Earth, Dr. Nathan Cross was working on something new. The quantum disruption mines had been effective, but he wanted something revolutionary. His team had been studying captured Draven shield technology, looking for weaknesses. I think I have it, Nathan announced during a demonstration for military officials. Phase shields that adapt in real time to incoming fire. They learn from each impact and adjust. The more you shoot them, the stronger they become. President Torres watched the test with hope. How soon can we deploy this? We can retrofit existing ships in 2 weeks each. New construction will have it built in. But there's a catch. The adaptive algorithms require significant computing power. We'll need to use advanced AI systems. The room fell silent. Advanced AI had been one of the technologies the Council had banned, fearing it would lead to machine uprisings. Earth had ignored that ban, but many coalition species still had concerns. Marcus Wright spoke carefully. We need every advantage. If the Draven are using human traders and scorched earth tactics, we can't afford to limit ourselves. Deploy the new shields. The decision was made. Earth's industrial might, already impressive, kicked into even higher gear. Shipyards that had been damaged were rebuilt. New facilities opened on the Moon, on Mars, in the asteroid belt. The human population, numbering 12 billion across all colonies, supported a war machine that produced vessels faster than any species in galactic history. Admiral Kane received authorization for Operation Righteous Fury. The Coalition would stop playing defense. They would take the war to Draven space, liberating the systems that had been conquered and targeting the Empire's infrastructure. The Krillian situation remained complicated. Fleetmaster Gorath, humiliated by his defeat at New Terra, had been plotting. He had seen what the Draven were becoming, how Emperor Morven treated even his allies as tools to be used. Gorath was a warrior, but he had honor. What the Draven had done to the Luminari was not war. It was butchery. In secret, Gorath began communicating with moderate elements in the Krillian government. A coup was planned. If successful, the Krillians would withdraw from the Draven Empire and potentially join the coalition, but coups were risky. And timing was everything. President Torres addressed the coalition in a broadcast that reached every member species. The Draven Empire wants to rule through fear. They want to prove that resistance to tyranny ends in death. We will prove them wrong. Starting tomorrow, we take the offensive. We fight not for conquest, but for liberation. For justice. For the right of every species to choose its own path. Kane's expanded fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace. 100 coalition warships with human vessels forming the core but supported by ships from a dozen species. Their target, the Draven-held systems in the outer territories. General Blake, now serving as a strategic advisor to Emperor Morvan, reviewed the intelligence about coalition fleet movements. He felt no guilt about his betrayal. In his mind, he was still trying to save humanity, even if they didn't understand. They're going to attack our outer holdings, Blake told Morvan. I know Kane. He'll use speed and surprise, hit multiple targets before we can respond. Morvan smiled coldly. Let them come. We'll crush them and then finish what we started. Earth will burn like the Luminari homeworld burned. Blake said nothing, but somewhere deep inside, doubt began to grow. He had convinced himself that surrender was survival, but looking at Morvan's face at the casual discussion of genocide, he wondered if he had truly saved anything at all. The coalition fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward Draven space. The second phase of the war was beginning, and this time, humanity and its allies were bringing the fight to their enemies. Admiral Jackson Kane stood on the bridge of the Defiant as the coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace into Draven territory. The first target was a system called Vareth Prime, a former council world that had been absorbed into the Draven Empire 3 months ago. Intelligence suggested light defenses and a population waiting for liberation. The intelligence was accurate. 3 Draven battleships guarded the system, and they were caught completely by surprise when 100 coalition vessels appeared. The battle lasted 20 minutes. 2 Draven ships were destroyed, 1 surrendered. Coalition casualties, 0, but Kane wasn't interested in just military victory. He opened communications with the plane. T-Surface. People of Vareth Prime, the coalition is here to liberate you, not conquer you. The Draven Empire will tell you we're barbarians that will destroy your world like they destroyed the Luminari homeworld. We're here to prove them wrong. Your planet is yours. Join us freely or we'll leave you in peace. The choice is always yours. The Vareth leaders who had been expecting the usual demands and threats were stunned. After quick deliberation, they agreed to join the coalition. The first system was liberated without a single civilian casualty. Over the next 6 weeks, the pattern repeated. 12 systems fell in rapid succession. Kane's forces used speed and precision, striking at military targets while avoiding civilian infrastructure. Species that had been conquered by the Draven found themselves freed, not simply transferred to new masters. Word spread. The coalition offered something the Draven Empire and the Old Council never had: genuine choice. Populations in Draven-held territories began rebelling, sabotaging military installations, and feeding intelligence to coalition forces. Emperor Morvan watched his empire crumble and responded with characteristic brutality. In systems where populations rebelled, he ordered scorched earth tactics, orbital bombardment of cities, execution of resistance leaders and their families. He believed fear would restore order. Instead, it fueled hatred. Even species that had been loyal to the Draven began questioning their allegiance. How could they serve an empire that murdered civilians to maintain control? On the Krillian homeworld, Fleet Master Gorath made his move. He had gathered support from moderate military commanders, from political leaders tired of serving Draven interests, from warriors who saw no honor in genocide. The coup was swift and relatively bloodless. The Warhawk government was overthrown. Gorath himself took temporary leadership, immediately withdrawing Krillian forces from Draven operations. Then he did something unprecedented. He contacted Admiral Kane directly. "Human Admiral, we have never been friends. You defeated me at New Terra, and I have not forgotten that shame. But I am a warrior, not a butcher. What the Draven have become disgusts me. I propose a meeting, warrior to warrior." Kane agreed, meeting Gorath on a neutral station. The two stood face to face, the human barely reaching the Krillian's chest. Gorath spoke first. "I judged your species by council propaganda. I believed humans were weak because you value individual life. I was wrong. You are fierce precisely because you value life. You fight harder because you know what you fight for." Kane replied carefully, "We're not asking you to love us. We're asking you to help us stop an empire that's become everything the Council claimed to oppose." "I will help," Gorath said. "Not because I suddenly trust humans, but because the Draven have abandoned honor. When this war ends, perhaps humans and Krillians can build a respectful peace. But first, we must win." The Krillian fleet joined the coalition. 100 warships commanded by experienced officers who understood Council military doctrine better than anyone. Combined with human tactical innovation, the coalition forces became unstoppable. Meanwhile, Captain Lisarenko was tracking General Blake. Intelligence suggested he was in a hidden Draven fortress in the Kairos system, working on some kind of secret project. Rita Vasquez authorized a special operations mission. Lisa led a team of 20 operators, a mix of human commandos and Luminari survivors who wanted revenge for their homeworld. They infiltrated the fortress using captured Draven security codes, fighting through layers of defenses. In the facility's deep levels, they found Blake in a laboratory with Draven scientists. The project was horrifying, a biological weapon designed to target human DNA specifically. A plague that would kill only humans, leaving other species untouched. Blake looked up as Lisa's team burst in. "You shouldn't have come here." "You've crossed every line," Lisa said, her weapon aimed at Blake's chest. "Treason was bad enough, but this? Genocide of your own species?" Blake's expression was tired, almost sad. "I told you. I'm trying to save humanity. Emperor Morven wants to exterminate every human in the galaxy. This weapon gives us leverage. Surrender now, or the Draven homeworld gets infected." "By murdering billions of innocent Draven civilians? That's your solution?" "It's the only solution they'll understand. Mutual assured destruction kept Earth from nuclear war for decades. It can work again." Lisa shook her head. "You've forgotten what makes us human. We don't become monsters to fight monsters. We stay human no matter what." She gave the order. Her team destroyed the laboratory, all the research, every sample of the bioweapon. Blake tried to run but was captured. As they dragged him away, he kept shouting about how they had doomed humanity, how they didn't understand. Lisa looked at him with pity. "No, General. You're the one who doesn't understand. We'll win this war by being better than our enemies, not by becoming them." The coalition advance continued relentlessly. 30 systems liberated. Emperor Morven's empire shrank day by day. Resources dwindled. Allies abandoned him. Even the Draven population began turning against their emperor, horrified by his atrocities. Finally, the coalition fleet surrounded the Draven homeworld. 150 coalition ships, including the combined human and Krillian fleets, blockaded the planet. Morven's remaining forces numbered barely 60 vessels. President Torres broadcast to the Draven people directly. "Your emperor has committed genocide. He has murdered billions in his quest for power. The coalition offers you this chance. Surrender Morven for trial, and we will leave your world in peace. Refuse and we will be forced to take him by force." Morven's response was to activate a planet-killer weapon hidden beneath his palace. A device that would detonate the planet's core, destroying the homeworld and killing 8 billion Draven civilians. He made his intentions clear. If he couldn't rule, he would take everyone with him. Ambassador Marcus Wright worked desperately on a diplomatic solution, but Morven refused all communication. The Coalition had hours before the device reached critical activation. Admiral Kane made the decision. We go in. Captain Renko, your team gets one chance to stop that device. Lisa and her operators launched in stealth drop ships, passing through the Draven orbital defenses during the chaos of a diversionary attack. They reached the capital city and fought street by street toward the Imperial Palace. The Draven people, realizing their emperor was willing to destroy them all, began helping the Coalition forces. Civilians provided information about secret entrances. Draven soldiers defected, unwilling to die for a madman. Dr. Nathan Cross, monitoring from the fleet, established a data link to Lisa's team. I can hack their systems, but I need physical access to the palace's central network. Can you get there? Lisa's team fought through the Imperial Guard, elite Draven warriors fanatically loyal to Morven. The combat was brutal. Close quarters firefighting through ornate halls. Lisa lost 3 team members getting to the control room. She plugged Nathan's device into the network. You're in, Doc. Nathan's fingers flew over his keyboard thousands of miles above. I see the device. It's elegant, I'll give them that. But there's a backdoor in the code, probably for maintenance. I can shut it down, but I need 90 seconds. Emperor Morven appeared on the palace's internal screens, watching the infiltration. You think you've won, human? I've already initiated the self-destruct sequence. In 2 minutes, this planet becomes a new sun. Nathan worked faster. Security programs tried to lock him out. He countered each one. 60 seconds, 45, 30. Morven entered the control room with his personal guard. A firefight erupted. Lisa took a plasma bolt to the shoulder but kept fighting. Her last team member fell protecting her position. 15 seconds. Morven reached for a manual override control. Lisa shot him twice in the chest. He fell, gasping. 5 seconds. Nathan broke through the final security layer and transmitted the shutdown command. The planet killer's countdown stopped at 1 second remaining. 8 billion. Draven lives saved. Morven, dying on the floor of his own palace, looked up at Lisa. You've doomed yourselves. The galaxy will never accept human leadership. Lisa knelt beside him. We're not trying to lead. We're trying to build something where everyone has a voice, including the Draven people you were willing to murder. Morven died with confusion on his face. Unable to comprehend a victory that didn't come with conquest, the Draven surrendered within hours. The population, learning how close they had come to annihilation, erupted in revolution. A new government formed, democratic and eager to distance itself from the Empire's atrocities. The war was over. 18 months of fighting. Millions dead on all sides. But it was finished, 5 years later. Ambassador Marcus Wright stood in the same building in Geneva where the Freedom Coalition had been born. Now it was called the Federation of Free Worlds, and it included over 200 member species. Former enemies sat together in cooperation. The Galactic Council had been formally dissolved. Some of its former members joined the Federation. Others remained independent but maintained diplomatic relations. A few isolated themselves, bitter about the loss of their old power. Wright retired that day, his mission complete. He had helped reshape galactic civilization from tyranny to genuine cooperation. Admiral Kane stood at the graduation ceremony of the Joint Military Academy, watching cadets from 30 species receive their commissions. Humans trained alongside Krillians, Draven, Luminari survivors, and others. Former enemies learning to trust each other through shared service. Gorath, now serving as the Krillian representative to the Federation, stood beside Kane. The two had become unlikely friends, bonded by mutual respect earned in combat. Your species changed the galaxy, Gorath said. Not through conquest, but through example. Kane shrugged. We just refuse to give up. Stubbornness is a very human trait. Dr. Nathan Cross's technologies, once weapons of war, were being shared freely across the Federation. His adaptive shields now protected civilian ships. His quantum physics research was advancing faster than light travel. Science that had been developed to kill was now saving lives and connecting worlds. On New Terra, Governor Michael Bradford watched children playing in the rebuilt parks. Human children and alien children together, not noticing or caring about their differences. His daughter, now 12, was best friends with a young Krillian whose parents had settled on the colony after the war. "Is this what we fought for?" Rebecca Stone asked, standing beside Bradford. "This is exactly what we fought for," he replied. A transmission came through the Federation's deep space network. Signals from beyond the galactic rim. Another civilization making contact, unknown and potentially hostile. Bradford read the report and smiled. "If they're hostile, they'll learn what the Council learned." "What the Draven learned." Rebecca nodded. "That humanity doesn't start fights." "But we finish them," Bradford completed the thought. He looked up at the stars, infinite and full of possibility. Humanity had fought for its place in the galaxy and won. Not through conquest or domination, but by proving that courage, determination, and the willingness to stand for what's right could change everything. The galaxy had voted against Earth once, calling it their final error. They had been right about one thing: it was an error. But the real error wasn't underestimating human military capability. It was underestimating the human spirit, the refusal to submit to injustice, and the dream of a better future worth fighting for. The Federation of Free Worlds faced an uncertain future. New challenges would arise. New conflicts might emerge. But for the first time in galactic history, hundreds of species stood together as genuine equals, ready to face whatever came next. And among them, humanity stood not as conquerors or victims, but as partners in building a civilization worthy of the stars.